a couple of other things is it's a standardized contract for all of your clients. So for those of you guys who have gone through the process of getting that big, large document from career staff to staff for them, for Genesis Healthcare or any of their clients, you'll see it as a long document. And if you decide to work with Genesis Healthcare, Benchmark, they have a couple of other clients in that long-term space, Genesis Rehab, AIDS Health Foundation, then you would sign that one contract. You're also accessible, and we'll look at some of this as the session started, to a larger pool of staffing needs. So like currently, their staffing needs is at 10,000, but I will say this as a caveat. Some people don't have the same access to the same client, so the needs can look a little bit different. But across the board, right now, we're seeing 10,000 openings, so that's pretty consistent. The other thing is their process for credentialing is standardized. So for those of you guys who are interested in eventually going into doing joint commission or that joint commission process, this is a great stepping stone to allow you to really be able to really centralize your credentialing process and have it consistent no matter what the client is. So for the most part, you'll submit the same types of documents, no matter the client. They'll meet 9 times out of 10 the same joint commission requirements, which makes it a lot easier as you transition. The billing process is consolidated. You get invoices sent out on a weekly basis to you about the shifts that your employees work, as well as you get the opportunity to see the shifts they work under the time card. But I'll show you guys that when we get there. How to gain access to more clients. So for those of you guys who are already with career staff, you can always reach back out to your account manager, which is what we did, and said, hey, do you guys have any new clients? Because the clients come and go. Probably this past year, Genesis sold some of their properties to Autumn Healthcare, Benchmark, Senior Living, and a couple of other places. Then you kind of have to make sure that you're reaching out. So they rarely will come to you and say, hey, we have some new clients. So you have to stay in contact with your account manager, which is essentially the person that goes out there and, solicits for businesses or send you your initial contract and ask about certain meeting requirements for your insurances and things like that. And then I kind of already touched on the fact that this could be a good stepping stone for joint commission. And then the other thing is, for some of the clients, you might have to have an invitation to staff for them. So for those clients, you would need to go through whatever that process is. And sometimes the account manager will know, but typically for the facilities that say you need to be invited to staff for them, they'll be able to tell you that process and what that looks like. A couple of things. So I'm just going to kind of touch on all of these things before we jump into the system. The starting bill rate. So the career staff system is broken into 2 vendor management systems. One vendor management system, which is Career Staffer Link, which covers the West, East, Northwest, Mid-America, and East regions. And then B4 Health is the other vendor management system that Genesis Healthcare has, and that covers Maryland, Delaware, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey. When you think about the West region, it's pretty much the West Coast from New Mexico west. The Northeast region is essentially Maine down to about Connecticut. And then Mid-America is Mid-America would be Georgia, Florida, and then Mississippi, Alabama, that curve. And then the East region is Virginia, West Virginia, North Carolina, that area. So that's kind of how they break it out. And all that's included in the breakdown of the contract about what region covers what. So one of the main differences between Genesis Healthcare or StafferLink and other vendor management systems or MSPs is that they have a bidding system. So similar to bidding like you do on eBay. So most of your other MSPs have a set rate. So they may say, hey, the rate is $75 for a med-surg nurse in Tennessee at Texas Baptist Hospital. Or, they may say our highest billable rate is this or that. So it's important to know the difference between the two. So that's one of the good things. And that's why I kind of went over to the next one where I talk about smart bidding. So the same way that you go about figuring out, oh, what's the bill rate for this direct client or this client, or you feel like the rate's too low, or maybe you find out because someone shares that information, it's the same way that you have to do with career staff. So career staff does give you a starting rate, and typically the starting rate can vary. It's definitely based on the region, and it's fairly competitive. But for you as a agency owner, you can bid up to a certain rate. So the example I give for us when we were bidding in New Mexico, when we first started out, I want to say that the bidding start rate for LPN was $36, but we were able to bid $56, and the client accepted that bid rate. So it's the same thing. I did the example about smart bidding as if you decide to have $100 bill rate and you have a pay rate, so you're paying the staff member $55, you do have to pay a fee. So all of your MSPs will have a 5% fee, or sometimes it might be 3 or 4% of what you're paying your employees. So whatever you're billing, they will take 5% of it. And then I gave the example where you have a gross profit of the $40. So for us, one of the other benefits is that you have more volume. I know a lot of people have questioned, oh, well, it takes them a long time. So it typically takes about 45 to 60 days to be paid. You don't have to worry about any sort of timekeeping because all of that's done in their Chronos system. So I'm just talking about the Genesis Healthcare client, they use Chronos across the board. And then the only other thing you would have to factor is if you have any sort of payroll funding, that piece of it as a fee that you would also have to pay off of whatever your profit is. I put here as an example some of the going pre-COVID bill rates to kind of give people an idea, and it's pretty much broken out from CNA, LPN to RN. Some of that's changed because when they did do COVID, they did offer COVID rates. So some of the positions had COVID rates, and they still have some COVID rates, but a lot of that's outlined in the contract. And I'm not getting into the details of the contract with this session. A lot of that is already clarified. So it'll say local rates, travel rates, and then it'll say COVID rates. Just because we know COVID isn't going anywhere. So they do have a rate increase for COVID. So a little bit about the credentialing process, and then I'm going to give you guys a chance to ask questions and we'll look in the system. So for the most part, all your clients are gonna want a background screen. Some of them will have the person do fingerprints when they get started, but statewide, some of them might ask federal, but minimum statewide background. Drug screening, typically a 7 or 10 panel drug screening. We've used LabCorp and Quest, and we haven't had any issues with getting a more or less 24 to 48 hour turnaround on that. Some sort of competency testing or skills checklist. And then I put there for the joint commission clients, because there are some clients that are joint commission, they typically require a competency test, whereas your non-joint commission clients you'll be able to provide them with a skills checklist, and that's sufficient. Regular testing, TB, Hep B, flu vaccine, titers, and then any sort of client specific. I know, because this presentation was pre-COVID, that they are having a COVID vaccine form similar to your flu vaccination form that they've included. They also have a form where you acknowledge that these things have done.